The Varath were a ruthless race, known throughout the galaxy for their cruelty and their endless desire for power. These towering reptilian creatures ruled over many star systems, conquering peaceful civilizations and enslaving those they deemed weak. They believed in one simple rule: only the strong survive. To the Varath, strength meant domination, and if they were to truly be feared, they needed to collect the most dangerous and powerful trophies. These trophies, living creatures from various species, were often displayed to show off their might. Among their most coveted prizes were humans. Humanity, though young in the galaxy, had proven itself to be strong and resourceful. The United Earth fleet had pushed back against the Varath's invasions, and Earth's warriors had earned the respect of many. Jace Calloway, a captain in the United Earth fleet, was one of those warriors. Known for his tactical genius and bravery in battle, he had become a symbol of human strength. That's why the Varath wanted him. When the Varath captured Jace, they saw him as the perfect prize. A man of great skill and intelligence, a warrior who had led many successful missions against them. The Varath had never been able to defeat him in battle, but now they thought they would finally have him in their grasp. This was their chance to break human morale, to prove that even the strongest humans could be captured. They would parade him before their people, a trophy to show that no one could stand against the Varath. Jace's capture happened quickly. His fleet had been ambushed by a large Varath force while on a reconnaissance mission. The battle was fierce, but the Varath were prepared. They disabled Jace's ship with a powerful EMP blast, leaving him with no choice but to surrender. The moment they had him, they wasted no time. They dragged him to their massive warship, locking him in a reinforced cell, and began their journey back to their homeworld. Jace, however, wasn't worried. He had been trained for situations like this. He knew that the Varath had underestimated him. They thought they could break him, use him to send a message to Earth, but Jace wasn't just going to wait for a rescue. No, he had other plans. The Varath homeworld was a harsh, unforgiving place. It was a planet covered in vast deserts, with temperatures that could fry a man in seconds. The skies were often red, as if even the atmosphere was filled with anger. The capital city of the Varath was located in a massive canyon, surrounded by tall cliffs. This city was a place of power and pride for the Varath, and it was where their warlord Zakal resided. Zakal was a leader unlike any other. He was cold, calculating, and ruthless. His goal was to expand the Varath Empire to every corner of the galaxy. To him, the humans were nothing more than a threat to be crushed, and Jace Calloway was the symbol of that threat. The Varath believed that by capturing Jace, they could show the universe that no species, not even humanity, could stand in their way. The warlord ordered a grand procession for Jace's arrival. He wanted to make an example of him. The streets of the capital were lined with soldiers, and the crowds gathered to witness the prize they had captured. Jace was led through the streets, hands bound, but his head held high. The Varath soldiers mocked him as he passed, calling him weak, a failure, and a mere human. But Jace said nothing. He only smiled, the glint of confidence in his eyes never leaving. Jace's mind, though locked in a cell, was constantly working. He wasn't thinking about how to escape. He was thinking about how to make the Varath regret ever laying a hand on him. He knew that the key to defeating an enemy wasn't always in direct confrontation. Sometimes you had to play the long game. Inside the prison, his cell was surrounded by high-tech force fields, designed to prevent any escape. But Jace wasn't worried about the walls around him. He had smuggled a small high-tech device into the Varath ship before his capture. It was a communicator, a small signal jammer that would allow him to send a distress signal once the time was right. He had to wait, biding his time. Jace knew that the Varath would be watching him closely, but he also knew that they would underestimate him. He had been a part of many covert missions before, and this was no different. He just had to stay patient and wait for the moment when the Varath would make their mistake. Meanwhile, Zakal was busy making plans for Jace's public humiliation. He knew that showing off such a dangerous enemy would crush the spirits of humanity. He would have Jace fight in the arena, surrounded by Varath warriors, each one stronger than the last. It would be a spectacle, a demonstration of their strength. The warlord was confident that this would break humanity's will to fight. But Zakal was wrong. As the days passed, Jace quietly worked in his cell. He studied the ship's systems, learning their weaknesses. He used his knowledge of Varoth technology to slowly alter the power systems, creating small disruptions. Each tiny mistake was a step closer to his plan, a plan that would send a signal to the United Earth Fleet. When the time came, Jace would be ready. The Varoth warlord spent his days preparing for the grand event, unaware that Jace was slowly turning the tables. His desire for victory was blinding him. He underestimated the human spirit, the same spirit that had helped humanity survive against impossible odds. The Varoth were used to ruling with fear, but they had never encountered a species that fought not just for survival, but for hope. And in the silence of his cell, Jace Calloway smiled. His capture, he knew, wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something much greater. Soon the Varoth would realize their mistake. They had captured the wrong human. They had captured the bait that would bring together the forces of Earth and its allies, and with it, the dawn of a new fight for freedom. The Varoth would regret underestimating humanity. Jace had been captured, dragged across the stars to the den of the Varoth. His once proud spirit was locked in a cage, but his mind was free, working tirelessly. His captors believed they had broken him, but they were wrong. He had known all along that escape wasn't his only goal. He was here for something much larger, a plan to bring the Varoth to their knees. As Jace sat in his prison cell, he could hear the sounds of the Varoth soldiers outside, boasting about their victory. They spoke in their harsh, guttural language, but Jace had learned enough over the years to understand their tone. They were confident, overconfident. They thought he was a symbol of humanity's defeat, a man on his way to certain doom. But to Jace, this was just the beginning. The Varoth were too proud to realize that their actions had set something in motion that they couldn't stop. Jace's capture had sent a signal, literally and figuratively, that reverberated across the galaxy. The hidden device in his suit, the one he had activated just before his capture, was broadcasting a call for help, but not in the way the Varoth expected. The United Earth Fleet had received the signal, but more importantly, so had countless other alien species. Races who had suffered under the brutal Varoth rule for decades, species that had been crushed, enslaved, and oppressed by the Varoth's endless wars, and they were ready to fight back. As the Varoth prepared for the spectacle of Jace's public humiliation, their warlord, Zakal, sat in his command center, overseeing everything. He believed the fight would be the perfect demonstration of his power. The humans would watch as their strongest warrior was defeated in the arena, and they would finally understand that no one could challenge the Varoth. But what Zakal didn't know was that the galaxy was already changing. When Jace had sent the signal, the first ships to respond were the Ardan. They were a proud, ancient race known for their fierce combat skills and unmatched strength. The Ardan had been one of the first to fall under the Varoth's tyranny, and they had waited for a moment like this to strike back. Following the Ardan, the Zethra also responded. A peaceful race, the Zethra had been enslaved by the Varoth for generations, their knowledge and skills stolen, their people broken. But they had never lost their will to fight, and now with the signal from Jace they were ready to take back what had been taken from them. Lastly, there were the humans who had escaped the Varoth's grasp. These were the ones who had found sanctuary on distant planets, forming alliances with other races, building their strength over the years. They had never forgotten their fallen comrades, and now they were ready to return to the fight. With these races ready to join forces, the Varoth were in for a battle they had never imagined. The Varoth may have thought they could control the galaxy through fear, but they had underestimated the power of unity. The first signs of the coming storm appeared when Zakal received word that the Varoth fleet was under attack. It came from nowhere. Suddenly, ships appeared out of nowhere, surrounding the planet and blocking any escape routes. The Varoth warlord's heart sank as he realized something was wrong. This wasn't just a small skirmish. This was the beginning of a coordinated assault. The United Earth Fleet led the charge, with Captain Amanda Torres at the helm of the flagship Stalwart. She had been part of the mission to rescue Jace, but now, as the signal from Jace reached her fleet, the mission had changed. This wasn't just about saving one man. This was about saving the galaxy from the Varoth's reign of terror. "Target their command ships," Captain Torres ordered, her voice steady as she watched the holographic display of the battle unfolding before her. Take them down and show the galaxy that humanity isn't afraid anymore. The United Earth Fleet had come with allies, ships from the Ardan, Zethra, and even other races who had long waited for this moment. The skies above the Varoth homeworld were filled with ships of all sizes, as the unified forces descended upon the planet like a storm. Zakal was panicking now. He had always believed that the Varoth were unstoppable, that no one could challenge their might. But now, as his forces struggled to hold back the advancing fleets, he realized that the very thing he had hoped would break humanity, Jace's capture, had done the opposite. It had united them. The galaxy was no longer divided. The species that had once been scattered and weak had found common ground in the face of the Varoth threat. On the ground, Jace knew it was time. The battle above was raging, and it was only a matter of time before the Varoth realized that they were losing. He could hear the sounds of explosions, the heavy thrum of Varoth ships trying to break free of the assault. It was time to make his move. He had carefully observed the Varoth ship systems over the past few days. The communications network was vulnerable, and Jace knew that if he could disrupt it, it would create confusion among the Varoth forces. That would be his opening. With the help of a few stolen tools from the Varoth guards, Jace managed to bypass the security systems on his cell. It wasn't easy, but he was no stranger to danger. Within moments, he was out of his cage, silently moving through the ship's corridors. He knew that time was against him. The battle above was intensifying, and the Varoth warlord was becoming desperate. Jace had one chance to change the tide. He had to get to the communications room. As he moved through the ship, he encountered a few Varoth soldiers. They were too focused on the chaos unfolding above to notice him until it was too late. With quick, precise movements, Jace disarmed and disabled them, silently moving on. He wasn't here to fight. He was here to end this. Finally, Jace reached the communications room. He plugged in his small device and began the process of shutting down the Varoth's network. As he worked, he could hear the sounds of the battle outside growing louder. He knew that the fate of the galaxy rested in these moments. If he could disrupt the Varoth's ability to communicate, it would give the United Fleets the edge they needed to win. It was then that Jace's comm device beeped. The message was clear: mission complete. The Varoth forces are falling. With a final push, Jace activated the shutdown and the ship's communication grid went dark. He could feel the shift in the atmosphere, the sudden confusion among the Varoth forces. They were losing control. As Jace made his way back to the ship's exit, he knew that the battle wasn't over. But he also knew that today, humanity and its allies had struck a powerful blow against the Varoth. They would never rule the galaxy again. The storm had arrived, and the Varoth had no idea what was coming for them.